What is happening with nchi jirani, Tanzania? What's going on there? Well, and I made this comment on our Telegram forum a short while ago. I find this super fascinating because the same wave of revolution and change that happened in the 1950s, that led to the independence of West African states in the 50s, late 50s, very quickly landed in East Africa with the independence of Tanzania before the other East African countries. That same wave, the same route that seems to be exactly the same route that this present day wind of change and revolution we're witnessing is taking. What is happening with President Traore? What has happened in the West African states that has sent the French packing? And then Kenya. Uganda has also not been spared, despite having a very brutal dictator called Kaguta Yoweri Museveni. Remember the Bobby Wine, Manenos? And then now finally, to a country where the leaders even now are not believing. I guarantee you, if you find CCM heavyweights anywhere, they will tell you, no, this cannot be happening. Indeed, I was thinking they would have given an excuse. How ni Wakenya wameingia Tanzania bila work permit? Hey, folks, it is happening. Oh yes, it is happening. Because the protests in Tanzania are now in day 2. Now please let us understand that this is totally unprecedented. Nothing like this has ever happened in the history of the country called Tanzania. And even as we get reports that Kenyan youngsters were trying to penetrate the border in Namanga to go and stand in solidarity with their fellow Gen Zs in Tanzania, even as those reports are still coming in. What I can tell you right now is that Tanzania has exploded. And how this thing ends is very predictable. Welcome to my show today, where we dive into all that. Karibuni sana. Hata ndugu zangu kutoka usalama wa taifa Tanzania, karibuni sana wazee. Karibu. Twende kazi. The very latest information I'm getting from my friends in Tanzania is that President Suluhu Hassan is in hiding somewhere in Zanzibar, okay, the island. I've not been able to verify that information, but then it is hardly surprising because things in Tanzania, as we used to say those days, things in Tanzania are thick. Or can we use more modern slang? Things in Tanzania, my friends, are elephant. And this was a long time in coming. And there's a lot also Kenyan leaders can learn from this. Okay? When you push people to a corner, even very peaceful people who fear and they hate violence and they really fear it, because that is Tanzanians for you. Even those people, when you push them into a corner, they will reach that corner and then they'll turn around and they'll say no. And then suddenly they'll become very dangerous. It's like this coward dog. You've heard that story. You chase it all over the place until it reaches this corner where it has nowhere to go. My friend, if that dog turns on you, utaumia. And this is precisely what has happened in Tanzania. That's a good illustration of what has happened in Tanzania. Now, my history teacher told me a long time ago that the winds of change that swept across Africa in the 1950s, one of the main causes was soldiers returning from the Second World War. African soldiers, native black African soldiers. And what happened is that these people had traveled the world and they had seen how people live in other parts of the world. And very important, they had also seen, even in the Mzungu country, they are poor people. They are beggars. They also have challenges there. They saw all this. And so when they came back home after the war, their eyes were opened. And they started to question things. Why is this like this? No, this is not fair. Blah, 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 blah. And the rest is history. Now currently, and CCM heavyweights will be charged very harshly by history for being very blind. What has happened here is that we live in the age of the internet. Facebook, TikTok, YouTube videos, etc., etc. And what this does is that it takes locals out of their country to visit other countries. They're able to see very clearly how other people are living. Just like the soldiers who went to the Second World War. Same thing, yeah, but different circumstances, slightly. And therefore what Madam Suluhu and the CCM should have done would have been to simply prepare for what was coming. Because this is not something which can be stopped. The solution was not to get those Kenyan activists, Kina Boniface Mwangi, tortured in such a brutal, inhuman way. No, that was not the solution. There was no way that influence could be stopped. And I assure you, the influence is not only from Kenya, it is from all over the world. And so now, very suddenly, the Tanzanian authorities find themselves with a very huge problem. You know, there's something we should get clear. You see, in Kenya, authorities are used to handling protests. They know exactly what to do. They know what to expect. They've got people who are trained to handle these protests. Tanzania does not. They have no idea what to expect. And therefore, the country's authorities, and especially the people who are supposed to quell these riots, have very suddenly stepped into very unfamiliar ground. What do you think will happen? What do you think is bound to happen? Hey! This government of Tanzania is in very serious trouble. More serious trouble than most people realize. But let's back up a little, yeah, and focus on the presidency of Madam Samia Suluhu, yeah, or is it Madam Idi Amin Suluhu, as she's now being popularly referred to on social media. And I find it more than super fascinating that just the other day she made a very arrogant speech, the long and short of which was to tell Kenyans, we don't want your bad manners maandamano in Tanzania. Well, it has arrived at our doorstep. Anyway, I want to give you a piece of information that will make this much clearer. When President John Pombe Magufuli suddenly died in office, do you know what happened? Madam Suluhu, who was then the vice president, was fetched by the top intelligence bosses of the country. Unfortunately, these are mostly old men ambao wamepitwa na wakati. They have no idea what's going on. And you see, the danger here is that they're very powerful. Yeah. Therefore, what says goes. What they advise the president goes. I'll come back to that in a minute. So they took Madam Suluhu somewhere and briefed her and trained her and prepared her to be president. That was the main reason why the announcement of the death of President John Pombe Magufuli, by the way, which happened at Nairobi Hospital, Nairobi. That is the reason why that announcement of that death took so many days. According to my calculations, over a week. So, Let me ask you a simple question. If somebody makes you president, trains you on what to do, grooms you, prepares you, what is going to happen when you become president? Of course, you'll be listening with a keen ear to what those people have to tell you. Long story short, Madam Suluhu is a robot of usalama wa taifa. Okay? They control all her moves. And this was there at usalama wa taifa believed that by jailing Tundu Lissu, removing him from the equation, dealing with all opposition leaders before the elections, it would go well for their candidate. That is what this Wazés believed. You know, when you grow old, your thinking also slows. Your ability to reason and keep up slows down. Especially when you're very arrogant and you believe you know it all. You know Tanzanians, they're peaceful, they can't protest. Hiyo ni kitu ya Wakenya. You ingia hapa Tanzania, it can't arrive here in Tanzania. That kind of thinking. Okay? And so, Madam Suluhu, in her entire presidency, has not only been a keen student of the usalama wa taifa, she's actually a robot of the same. Okay? Now, I don't know if you'll excuse me. I would like to address a certain audience that I'm sure taking in this video, I am 200% sure that they're listening very keenly to what I'm saying. Please allow me to address them. Okay? Nyinyi wazee wa usalama wa taifa, the monitoring you're trying to do, messing up with my computer, all those old things that mnajaribu kusikia nasema nini ama nafanya nini. Wazee, naomba muende nyumbani mpumzike, mmepitwa na wakati. Okay? Na vile ningependa kuwashauri ni kwamba any solution ambayo mtatafuta kumaliza hii shida Tanzania will not work. Naomba muende nyumbani, mtafute vijana chipukizi, mtafute watu wengine ambao wajapitwa na wakati, waweze kuokoa nchi ya Tanzania. Najua wengi wenyu mnasema nyinyi ni wafuasi wa hayati rais wa kwanza wa Tanzania, Mwalimu Julius Kabarage Nyerere. Lakini hiyo ni uongo mtupu, and I want to prove it. Nitawachezea clip fupi ya maneno ya Mwalimu Nyerere mwenyewe akishauri watu wasifanye vile mmefanya. Sikilizeni, ni fupi sana. Nitarudi baada ya muda sio mrefu.
Sasa nasema ni vizuri sasa wakasikiliza. Wananchi wanasemaje? Msipuuze kabisa hiyo. Na hiyo nasema, nasisitiza. Msidhani mnaweza mkapata ushindi mkipuuza maoni ya wananchi. Mkasema hili ni letu tu. Ni letu tu. Mnatoka kwenye kikao cha halmashauri kuu, alafu wenyewe tu mnakwenda kwenye pale mnakwenda kwenye kikao cha wateuzi, wanateua mmoja, mnasema kiulizwa kwa nini mnasema si letu tu. Lenu hamteui katibu wa chama. Mnateua mtu awe rais wa Jamhuri ya Muungano ya Tanzania. Kwa hiyo ni vizuri msikilize wananchi wanasema nini juu ya watu wenu hao. Msipuuze maoni ya wananchi hata kidogo. Chama kitakachopuuza maoni ya wananchi kinaweza kikalia kilio, asipatikane mtu wa kusaidia kupanguza machozi. Na ninachowaambia CCM na waambia vile vile na vyama vingine vile vile. Lazima msikilize wananchi wanasema nini. Kwa sababu kama wote ni sawa na wananchi wanampenda mmoja katika hao kuliko wengine, basi huyo ndiye anayefaa. Chama kitakachopuuza maoni ya wananchi kinaweza kikalia kilio, asipatikane mtu wa kusaidia kupanguza machozi.
There you have it. Now, if I had to make a list of my all-time favorite presidents, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere would be on top of the list. He was not an angel. He did a few things that people may say are dictatorial. Yeah, but then when you look closer, considering that he was a lone wolf trying to protect his country and himself from powerful Western forces. This man was a real hero of the continent. And we know for sure that it all came from his heart. Because when this president retired, he was broke. He was a poor man. He didn't even have a house. The military had to build one for him. Oh yes, true story. When he retired, he was not rich. Look at Kenya. People come into the presidency, they become super rich overnight. They're already rich, but when they come into the presidency, it is a money-making, money-minting thing. Please learn something, if it is possible for you to learn, from the life of Mwalimu Julius Kabarage Nyerere. And you know, the irony of it all, that house they built for Nyerere, he never lived in it. He was traveling all over the world, giving talks, traveling all over the place. The total time he spent in that house could not have been more than a month. 2-3 months tops. Most of the time he was out. And then shortly after that, he passed on. Bottom line, he did not need that house. He didn't need it. He never lived in it. If only we Africans could learn from the life of great Africans, Africa would be a better place by far. I just don't know. I don't know what can save Africa. Anyway, I know the question on the minds of many who are taking in this video is what happens next in Tanzania. Okay, so let's tackle that head on. Now, the protests are countrywide, and Tanzania is a huge country. I've had the privilege of traveling across most of it. Yeah, about 3 years before my wife passed on, we did a road trip, Dar es Salaam, Dodoma, right across the country, yeah, to the gold mines, up to the border with Rwanda, and then back through Mwanza into Kenya. It was a beautiful trip. Tanzania is a very beautiful country, more beautiful than Kenya. Oh yes, the natural beauty of that country is unbelievable. I highly recommend that after this mess is over, forget about going to Dubai or Europe. Visit Tanzania and do a road trip across that country. You'll not regret it, okay? But hot tip, remember to carry Tanzanian shillings. Those ones who are stuck with foreign currency and the vehicle had no fuel. Well, that's a story for another day. Adventure is also good on a road trip. Anna? Anyway, Tanzania is a huge country. It is larger than Kenya and Uganda put together. And the protests are countrywide. Now, there are one of two things which are going to happen. Okay? And both of them will lead to the same end of the road. Number one, the authorities can manage to put down these protests. Okay? Manage to get them to stop. However, I assure you, that will only be momentarily. Down the road, in another month or 2 months, whatever, those protests will start again and they'll be bigger. Okay? Of course, the other second thing that can happen is that this protest can continue until the president leaves office. President Idi Amin Suluhu Hassan. Now, the way Tanzania works is like the old communist Politburo. Yeah, all the Kenyans will know what I'm talking about. It is a very controlled place. And there's some very powerful people within CCM who call the shots, including former presidents like retired President Jakaya Kikwete. And of course, these old men believe in sly moves. And therefore, what is most likely going to happen is that they're going to do everything in their power to ensure that the next president of Tanzania is also CCM. Or whatever comes next is also CCM. However, we have the vibrant opposition whose influence is spreading and spreading fast. We have a Raila Odinga in Tanzania called Tundu Lissu, who refused to leave jail until after the elections. He was released by the High Court of that country. They found the charges of treason against him absurd, naturally. Does that surprise you? And he was released, I believe, 2-3 days before the elections. But he made a speech in court and refused to leave jail until after the elections. After the elections would be, I guess, today or tomorrow. It is highly unlikely that CCM's next chess moves will go without being countered by Tundu Lissu and his people and the general opposition. Okay? Therefore, it's going to be very tricky there. With a very deep knowledge I have of that country and its politics, I've even lived there for quite a while, for a number of years. With that knowledge, I can tell you, it will be very difficult to remove this thing called CCM. Okay? It is very powerful. It is right up to mashinani. It is all over the place. Dirty tricks zote wanajua, etc., etc. However, since the winds of change have come, and I'm sure an analyst would have said the same thing in the 1950s, when the wind of change arrived, and the solid colonial Mzungu government looked like it was not going to be moved anywhere, but finally it was moved. In the same way, I believe it is possible that actually the opposition will take power. It is possible, but it's not going to be easy, that the opposition will take over. And that finally, CCM will go the same direction KANU in Kenya went. Yeah, you know, KANU was kicked into oblivion. Yeah, it is possible that that could happen. But of course, I'll keep a very close eye on developments kwa nchi ya jirani, and I will keep you posted right here on this Kumekucha Chris channel. By the way, I almost forgot. You know, the internet has been shut down in Tanzania. But then we are still getting pictures coming from phones and gadgets from deep inside Tanzania, showing us in real time what is happening, the protests and so on and so forth. How are they doing this? VPN. You see, nchi jirani are very technical people. They're technical savvy, more than Kenyans. Oh yes, oh yes. And this is just the kind of challenge I'm sure a lot of Tanzanians have enjoyed cracking. So the pictures continue to come out from deep inside Tanzania, although the internet has been shut down. Yeah. Hongera, our brothers and sisters in Tanzania, and all the best as you fight for a better Tanzania. All the best, my brothers and sisters. Now, very quickly before I go, I know most of us are waiting with bated breath for that highly sensitive special report that talks about how Raila Amolo Odinga was assassinated. A very fascinating special report. I'm just putting the final touches to that. So you have a little more time to book your seat by ensuring that you have the golden key. You can see details on your screens right now. The advantage of the golden key is that you'll be able to get everything Kumekucha without any payment or without worrying about any payment. Everything, and I mean everything. Weekly intelligence briefings, all previous special reports, and even non-political videos produced on this channel, like how to operate in a dead economy. You'll be able to get all that, yeah, with the golden key. I believe this is the absolutely last call, so please act swiftly if you're able to, and secure the golden key, which is forever. Yeah, it is not annual. It will not take 2 years. No, it is permanent, and you can see details on your screens right now. Okay? Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.